something, right?
Yes, so it's
That's
different.
it. This is something, something.
So that got us hung up a little bit, and then I guess
Rosanna Anadana.
no, stop.
That's always something.
And then the camera wasn't connected, so we're a little late, but it's all good. And boy, we have a lot going on here. I know most of the world has shut down because
Not us.
no,
Never shut down.
no, always moving forward. And I'm looking for what I want to talk about today. But anyway, you have my attention at 1:56. We have a guest coming in today. John Richards, he's going to be calling in about 4 minutes. We have a lot to talk about. You're going to see a new. All right. I am all over. I'm all over the place. That's what you get for keeping me in the house for so many days. Um,
That's not what Gary said.
I'm ignoring you. So,
I know you're good at ignoring me.
a new time clock you're going to see. We were originally doing 2 segments of the show, and we have decided now to do 4 segments to help Bill with his part in editing because he had to cut 6 minutes out last week. We had such a good conversation at the second half. There was 6 minutes that needed to get changed.
And also is that we've got people who want to advertise with us.
There you go.
And we got to start putting advertising breaks in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the big thing is anybody out there who is looking to get on radio and you're going to be doing recording. Excuse me? Okay. But if you're looking to turn podcast into radio
Mm-hmm.
rather than the other way around, treat the podcast as if you're live and you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, if you got to edit it to get it into the rotation to play on a radio station, I got news for you. It's going to take you forever. Ever. Last week, it took me half a day to do one 51-minute show.
That's a long time. And you know what? Before we get started, hey CJ, can you hear us? We didn't even do a mic check. Okay, good. I don't get flustered or anything like that. I just things get behind and I want to get going, and then I forget about the basics like a mic check, because we've had how many times where we talked and nobody heard us. That was so.
Well, that's the old the tree falls in the woods kind of problem, right?
There was no tree falling in the woods. There were people that were trying to
Well,
come and listen, and they couldn't.
If there was nobody to hear, was there really any sound?
But there were people that were trying to.
I got John on the line.
Oh, okay. So we have our guest, John Richards, and I guess, do you want to bring John in and then do the updates?
Yeah, bring John in right now, and then we will go ahead and start the show, even though we may start. Well, you got 2 minutes left.
I didn't even.
Go ahead, bring John in.
How do I? Oh, that's not how I do this.
Hey, John, how you
I
doing?
can already hear you guys.
How you doing?
Good, I'm doing well. How y'all doing?
All right, so we're live on Facebook right now. Obviously, they can't see you; they can see us. But we are doing our behind the scenes for Facebook before we start the show.
And we're a little bit
All right.
behind on that because Facebook decided to update their platform, their Facebook Live thing. So anyway,
Should I go on Facebook Live and mute you guys so I can see what's going on?
yeah, if you want to,
Yeah, if you can stand it.
Uh-huh.
it'll be fun. So, so for everybody on Facebook Live, this is my friend John Richards with the Barter Authority, and he's going to be our guest today. He's going to be bringing us some great information, great tips on sales in the follow-up. Maybe I'll just stand today. Can you hear me okay if I'm standing?
Well, that's one of the things we were going to do to Studio A. We're right now recording out of Studio C here at WNTW, and we have Studio A, and what we were going to do there is hang the mics from the ceiling like the old days.
Oh, my.
Go totally retro. It's 1930s, and we're standing there with
Yeah.
the script like Bob Hope and all those people.
So I would wonder why you wouldn't go backwards on something like that.
Why not go retro? Why not go back to the days when radio was the
'Cause
powerhouse?
Evolution is a thing, and it's usually a good thing.
We're using radio differently than they used radio in the 30s. Doesn't mean we can't go back to some of our traditions. I know that John McCune will be listening to this on Saturday, and John is going to totally agree. John is our engineer who keeps us on the air, especially at the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And John and I have talked about how to go back and do 30s programs, which it's going to happen, especially when we go internet. Well, anyway, so John, what we're doing is we basically behind the scenes for everybody on Facebook who is watching right now and we explain what's going to happen and all that good stuff.
But we haven't given our update yet. We gave an update so far on the new format of the show and why. So 4 segments, and now we can bring in advertisers for that. Plus, it'll make it easier when we
Yeah.
have it for you for editing.
Hey, John, your mic is real hot, so it sounds like you're drinking or throwing crap around. Is that
Who,
you?
me?
Yeah. Were you doing anything like shuffling papers, anything?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. Because I was picking up a sound and I was looking at our stuff going, I don't think it's here in the studio. And I looked out at CJ and I think his mic's off. All right. So do your update, and because we're already a minute in, we get started here shortly.
Wasn't my update. It's your update.
Which update do you want me to do?
Didn't we talk about this?
We talked about a lot of things. We updating the show, or are we updating the station?
Well, okay. So we have a meetup out there. I'll do this part. 2 days. April the 1st, we're going to do it at noon, and April the 3rd, we're going to do it at 7 p.m. And it's a brainstorming session, mostly for local RVA people. But since we're doing it online, anybody that's listening can sign up for that. You can sign up through the app called Meetup. It's Business Resources RVA is the name of the meetup. Group. Our meetup is called Selling in a Corona World, or Doing Business in a Corona
Doing
World.
business, Corona
Yeah,
World.
and it's also on Eventbrite. And what we want to do is get business owners together who are needing to rethink the way that they do business and just have a brainstorming session. So
Yeah, and we also have a survey that's tied up to that. I mean, what we're doing right now with the radio audience is collecting data on that survey. And so if you're on Facebook, I put a link up there, and I think I pinned it to the top of the page. You can take that, and the idea behind the survey is to try to find out where your pain points are right now, given the fact that, in Virginia we're shut down. And if you're not in Virginia, my guess is you probably are shut down as well. Maybe not West Virginia, but every place else. And so how are you going to keep the doors open, business running? And what we want to do is we want to modify programming like we're doing today. One of the things that's going to happen with John on is that we're going to be talking about how you would do something in a normal world versus how you got to do it now.
Yeah, in the Corona world. So there's that, and we'd love to have you join us. We'd love to meet you for that. We're going through it too because we're building a business. We're startup.
Yeah, we're a startup, and now we can't meet anybody.
Yeah.
But we have the medium of radio, and that's what the power of radio is. And
Yeah.
I'll just put a plug in: is if you haven't thought about advertising on radio with your business, now's the time, because people are home, and what are they doing? If they're not watching TV, they listen to radio.
Yeah, YouTube videos, Facebook, all that, and so there's that, and then we do have our radio station live for a soft launch, but we haven't really been putting it out there yet because you got some more tweaks to do.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to look at it right now. What we're doing is we're building a 24/7 business radio station on the internet, and so instead of doing this from terrestrial like WNTW here, we're going to be doing it from the internet, and then we are going to be, the long-term plan is we're going to be buying radio stations. So don't be surprised if we don't own this one.
Ah.
And I got to be careful about saying that because there are a lot of people trying to buy this one.
So that's it. I think that's a good enough.
Yeah, that's enough
that.
for people on Facebook. And John, anything you want to add to that before I start rocking and rolling and go through my script?
I'm good.
Okay. So, John, you sound like you're all settled there. I sent you, and it looked like you were able to look at the conversation we had earlier today with those 3 questions and the basic lineup. We're going to, once Bill counts us in, we're going to set the timer for 17 minutes. At about the 17-minute mark, we'll stop, take a break. Nothing will change as far as the Facebook Live or anything, but we'll be able to have a conversation about where we're going to the next one. We'll get counted in again, and that just helps for editing. And then we'll go 8 minutes, take a break, count in for 10, take a break, count in for 18.
Yeah, so the first break is a soft break for commercial. The break at 30 past the hour is going to be hard break that we have to take, and then the last break is going to be another soft break. So we've added 2 to the process.
And then we're basically going to be setting the show up in the first half. So, John, if you have anything that you in there to add to that, you don't have to be quiet as a church mouse. But we're just setting up the show, and then the B and C section, the 2 middle sections, is primarily you. and your interview, and then in the last part of the show, then we'll talk about how to do a application, how to actually take it into the world. I think that's it. You ready to go, John?
Whenever you guys are.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready to go. Are we recording? All right, CJ's gave us the thumbs up. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. You're listening to Sales 2020, everything a business owner needs to know and do to generate more and better revenue, which means better customers with higher margins. This is show and podcast number 16 in our series on sales. And we are proud to partner with WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM out of Chester, Virginia, serving all of Central Virginia, from Ashland to Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, from Amelia Courthouse to Tidewater, and on a good day to Virginia Beach. I'm William Eastman. I have the Deck and Con, and in the studio with me is my co-host or host, Donna Kunde. How you doing, Donna?
I'm excited to be here, Bill. It's so much fun.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good that you're happy. So anyway, here's the deal. Every Thursday we're live in the studio at about 2:00. We start at 1:45 on Facebook Live, doing a little bit behind the scenes, and then at 2:00 we start the show. Today we started at 2:02, and now we're going to roll. We are recorded on Saturday, so if you're listening to this over WNTW 92.7 FM, it's either Saturday at 10 or it's Sunday at 4. And so that way if you want to go back and look at the show, we also have, it's there on Facebook. Also, we have show notes. And so if you want to do that, and one of the ways to participate in the show, unless you're driving your car when you're listening to this, is go to our website, which is 2020sales.solutions. That's 2020sales.solutions. Okay? Our approach is really simple here. Go to the website, grab, download, however you want to do it, the show notes, listen to the show, and then apply it in terms of applying to the business. What we don't do is we don't do a lot of what and why here. We do a lot of how. Because my experience in this business is a lot of people will tell you what you should do, and about 5 minutes into it, you go, okay, I agree. Now what do I do? Mm-hmm. And then they tell you more that you really ought to want to do it, and you're going, all right, already, I want to do it. Mm-hmm. Now what do I do? What we try to do here is go, do this. Okay, so Donna, what's going on today on today's show?
Well, Bill, before I get into that, I just want to say that if you're listening to us on the radio and you haven't seen us yet on Facebook, we just have a little bit of fun before the show starts. And so you can get a behind the scenes view at 2020 Sales Solutions, no dot, and they're just 2020 Sales Solutions on Facebook. There's a video, and so if you want to build your own podcast business or just kind of see what we're doing, or if you like being that fly on the wall to see that behind the scenes stuff, go to 2020 Sales Solutions on Facebook. Now, to answer your question, Bill, with the help of our special guest today, John Richards. Hey, John, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. So with John's help today, we're going to be wrapping up our monthly theme of in-person sales, and we're going to take a look at sales in the follow-up. In today's Corona world, we really need to explore what you talk about, Bill, 4 critical views or steps in the sales process. The first 2 are selling in a normal environment, and then we're going to take a look at selling in this period of fear. And then finally, we'll apply these views to the follow-up conversations, and John will be adding some other great insight on building trust and continuing the sales process, even when people are stuck at home and not wanting to spend money.
Yeah, but on the other hand, they probably now have money to spend unless they've been unemployed.
Well, it depends. I think, if you're that solopreneur that didn't have something set up, maybe I think like a coaches, speakers, massage therapists, not brick and mortar, but more of that other type of business. And not all of them, but I think there's some that are really wondering where the income's going to come from.
Yeah. So let me start with how did we all get in this predicament? And I'm not going into the medical side of this because that's a different conversation. We're a business show, not a medical show. And though I have a couple degrees, none of them are in microbiology or anything related to medicine. So if you go to the website, 2020sales.solutions, 2020sales.solutions, and you get there, you'll see the navigation bar. At the top, you'll see the word tools. If you'll come down and you'll see the second one is show notes. If you click that, You'll open up the page, and I want you to take the one, not the show 16, because we're going to do that as part of the conversation with John. I want you to open the one on Owner's Executive Chapter 5, which is a book I wrote, because I want to kind of explain where we all may be as business people. So as you open that up, this is something that I wrote for the book, and I did last year on one of our business shows, kind of who are my rogues gallery of people that I pay attention to. And one of the things I'll say is that for the most part, they're mostly contrarian thinkers, because I like contrarians. Anybody can tell you what everybody else is thinking. And there's not much to be learned from that, because anybody you talk to will tell you what everybody's thinking. I like the people who are out of the box, who are thinking about things and going, I haven't heard that before. Doesn't mean they're right, but it means you need to pay attention to it. And if you'll scroll down on that, I have a couple names on there. I'm not going to talk about Pete Drucker, anything about management. You've heard the name Drucker. I'm not going to talk about Elliot Carlisle. Excellent work. And by the way, those are hot links to Amazon if you're interested in their books, or Henry Mintzberg. Ishak Adiz is a pretty cool guy. Growth of businesses, I'm not going there. So I want you to scroll down to the bottom of the page, and if you're interested in those characters, those links will take you. You put their names into a search, you'll find out a lot about them, and you'll understand why I've got them on kind of my short list of cool people. I want you to look at Nassim Taleb. Now, let me say a little bit about Nassim. Nassim is a mathematician, and he is Lebanese and Greek. He was born in Lebanon, educated in France, but has spent his almost entire life in New York City as a hedge fund manager. So he is fundamentally a mathematician. And what he is, the guy who kind of put not the name of Black Swan, but the kind of the concept, the guy who pulled it together. And he wrote a book called Black Swan in the early 2000s. And what a black swan is, basically, if you got 100 white swans in the pond and they're all having some sort of sexual relationship with each other, all of a sudden you'll get a black swan. And how'd that happen? Because when you look around, there are no black swans, and the idea is obviously it's a recessive trait, but eventually there will be a black swan. And he used that analogy to say what happened in 2007, 2008 with the housing crisis, what is happening right now with coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever you want to call it, the Chinese Wuhan, I don't really care because the name is immaterial, is that you can predict every 10 or maybe 15 years that some black swan will come across the world and impact what's going to happen. You can predict it's going to happen, but you cannot predict what it is, and you can't predict when it's going to happen. But what it does is it exposes them, and in his case, he's talking organizations and businesses. It exposes them if, in fact, and what you see a little further down, is he had a continuum, and he said on one end, you have those organizations or businesses that are fragile. And what he meant by fragile was pretty simple, is that they are one event, one mistake, one stupid move, one black swan away from being wiped.
So basically, the yogurt of life is going to hit the fan in a business owner's world about every 10 years. And
Yeah.
you just gotta build for it. You gotta prepare for it as best
Right.
that you can, just with best business practices.
Right, and he called that fragile, and he said, his thing was is that most small business owners get caught, and he wasn't addressing small business owners. He's talking to major corporations. He was talking about at the time that he wrote this concept, he was talking about Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and the banks, but it applies to small business owners.
But you
as
see
much.
that from the past. So we had the flu epidemic 100 years ago, Spanish flu, then the Great Depression. They had, just
World War
different
One
things.
in the Spanish influenza. I mean, wiped the world out. More people died from the Spanish influenza in 1917, 1918 than died in World War One. And World War One was a bloody
Yeah.
friggin' war.
Yeah. So history is repeating itself
Right.
once again as we stand here now.
So you go from 1918 to 1929, and the stock market crash, 11 years. Okay, you go from 1929
to
to
2020.
1939,
Okay.
and Hitler starts the war in Europe. You
But
go
before
from-
that, you were almost lining up.
Yeah, and then 39, you go to 50, and what do the
Uh.
Chinese do? They invade. North Korea starts a war, and they invade. So you can look at this pattern, and it's not exactly 10 years, but this thing happens all the time. And what it's saying is that no matter how on top of things you are, there are events that occur that are outside your control. And he said, so what you've got to do now is you've got to take a look at how that business or organization you're running is equipped to deal with something that is massive, harmful, and unpredictable. And he said on one end is fragile. And what happened in 2007, 2008 was the banking system in the United States was fragile. And it came down. Now, and his thing was, it's interesting because he had to coin a couple phrases here. He said, on the one hand, robust is the kind of the second condition, but that's not the end of his continuum. Robust are those organizations that will survive this type of event. And so, let's say the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the craziness around that in the U.S. goes on for another 60 days. And then we kind of go back to business as normal. The robust companies will be here in 60 days. The fragile companies will be gone. They'll be out of business.
Will they be gone, or will they have transformed?
Well, we're hoping, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today, is that transformation. But his point is that if you're fragile and an event like this happens, you're basically going to get wiped.
Yeah.
And then robust companies are the ones that survive it. Now, what was interesting is his third concept was anti-fragile. And he came up with the word anti-fragile because he didn't have another term for it. So he said, okay, well, it's the opposite of anti-fragile. And it's those organizations that in these periods of great disruption, like right now, grow and gain and actually can take advantage of it. And so and he looked at companies in the past, and there were organizations that were well positioned that when something like this happened, they just took off because they took advantage of something that they didn't do, and it's not their fault, but they just said, our business has the adaptability that we can see what these opportunities are, and they're not necessarily the opportunities of doing what you currently do. It's the opportunities of taking what you currently do and transforming it
differently
into something else.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I heard that Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, he's big, he's just about everywhere on television. They've shut down one of the pillow factories. They're now making face masks.
Interesting.
And so what's going to happen is he's going to grow a new business out of that. Now, whether he stays in that, I don't know. But do you think he's going to lay anybody off?
But I think we got to be careful with that, Bill, because I know also back when the polio epidemic was around, the U.S. government was looking at factories that they could buy so they could build more wheelchairs. Right. So you got to have some strategic thinking as you move forward. Is it going to be something that's going to serve the population? I mean, in their mind, they thought, yeah, this is what we need is more wheelchairs. But do we really need more people in wheelchairs, or should we be putting that?
Or making more iron lungs. But the issue is that the anti-fragile company, when they get hit with something like this, it's not a matter of, well, how do we survive it? We know we will, but will we survive it well?
They're thriving.
They're going to go, here's a great new market opportunity. Yeah. And it could be that they develop a new business that now becomes their business going into the future. Because typically after a black swan event, nothing goes back to exactly the way it was before it hit.
Look at Zoom and all that they're doing to help out, and all the schools that are closed, and you have all this digital now that people that's how they're communicating, that's how they're conducting business. Even the big CNN and whatnot, they're doing it from home. They're taking up all our bandwidth,
and see, education would be a great place to go to say, why hasn't e-learning or online learning picked up in education? Because it's all there. The infrastructure's there. The bandwidth is there. All the things that you need are there, but it hasn't picked up. This event may make that an industry, just like I remember when we had 9/11. And though I was not making a living as a speaker completely, I was doing a couple speeches a month, and suddenly that business died up. It just dried up. Yeah. And what happened was companies like GoToMeeting, suddenly, even though they were there and they were doing pretty good stuff, nobody was really adopting it. And now suddenly everybody was going to GoToMeeting or web meeting or whatever the platform is. This is not a commercial for those guys. It's just a matter of all of a sudden the technology was there, but the acceptance wasn't, the adoption wasn't.
I will do a commercial for John, because we've got John Richards on today with the Barter Authority.
Yeah.
What a great company right now where you're using trade dollars to get the things that you need. Right, John?
Yes, ma'am.
So
yeah, a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about, it actually creates opportunity, and that's where people can utilize old resources, new resources, or new ideas to help them evolve into whatever's coming out of whatever the crisis may be.
So looking for new and different ways to do things, I think, is really
Right. Well, in fact, when you get in the third part of the show, and we're all kind of talking about this, that's one of the things I'm going to hit on is what's the strategy for in this environment with existing accounts, and it could be that John's approach is the place to go, and we're going to be talking about insourcing and outsourcing because I got a couple examples. I met with a business owner last night that is engaged in this right now as a way of keeping her business going and in keeping kind of her ecosystem of companies, our econ system, keeping them going by they're going to be insourcing and outsourcing work to each other in a way of barter.
mm-hmm. That's kind of what we talked about with Brandon Subo. He was saying, if I can't go to work, maybe I can trade some of my time for your services, especially
Right.
for the service-based industries. If we just, I think the point of all this right now in this whole Corona world is the thinking that got us to this point is not going to be the thinking that brings us to anti-fragile.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to be different thinking.
Right, and it's a whole process that you got to go through because one of the challenges business owners have is they think like business owners, and all that means to a lot of people is they're glorified technicians. Whatever the technology of the company is, they're the customer service person, they're the first contact, they're the manufacturing person, they're driving the truck, etc. If your view of ownership is you're just a super administrator, super tech, you're not going to get there, and when these things hit, you're not going to be really ready to take advantage of it. And so I'm not going to go too much in depth into this except to say that if you are fragile right now as an owner, own it because you did it. And I can't tell you when the next event like this is going to come along, but it will. And so one of the things to learn is what should you have done to have built enough reserve, maybe cash, reserve in terms of production capacity. I don't know your particular business, so I can't say you should have done this. That's part of why we're doing the survey, is that, in fact, if you're listening to this and you want to participate in our survey, we're trying to find out where the pain points are right now for you, given the COVID epidemic. So go to our website, and what you'll see at the website is I call it Corona selling. And so it's not selling beer, it's selling in this particular environment. There's a 3-question survey really quick, and every Thursday on Facebook, and of course Saturday and Sunday you'll hear it, we'll do a report on what data we've collected so far. And we're going to modify our on-air programming to fit what we're collecting. So we're trying to fit it what we think you want, but if we don't hear from you, then it's only what Don and I think you want rather than you telling us, I want that. Okay, any concluding thoughts before we go out?
No, just stay tuned because we're bringing John Richards in for a great interview.
Okay, so we're coming up on our break, and we're going to be taking about 1 minute here. So you've been listening to Sales 2020, everything a business owner needs to generate more and better revenue. This is show number 16, podcast number 16. Heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 a.m. from Chester, Virginia, the voice of Central Virginia, and we'll be right back. All right.
Way to go over, Bill.
Since I have to edit it, I'll find it. It's only 2 minutes. I had a couple pauses in there.
1 minute. All right, John, so you're up.
Yeah, so when we come back on, John, Don's got a couple questions. I'm going to counterpunch if I hear something I want to respond to, or I might not. And so what we'll do now is we'll run 8 minutes, and then I will give Donna the cue, and then I'll come in and basically say we're going to take our hard break at the bottom of the hour and go out and, like we're doing right now, have a short conversation, come back, and then you have another 10 minutes. And then after that, a break. And then the final 18 is the three of us talking to each other about what we've discussed up to this point, okay?
I just want to...
Sounds good.
I didn't pull up... hold on.
Okay.
I didn't pull up my notes. I'm sorry.
What notes?
I didn't want to make this noise. So
Yeah, because the mics are picking up the noise.
I want to go on here electronically.
All right. Because I'm hearing something in the background.
I moved for a second.
Oh, okay.
You are not allowed to move.
I can take some of that sound out, but not all of it. All right. So Donna, you ready?
I am ready now. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So here we go. And I always do the 3, 2, 1 is kind of my cue. So when I'm listening to the
8 minutes.
podcast, I can go, okay, it's right here. All right. 3, 2, 1. We're back. You listen to Sales 2020, everything your business owner needs to know to generate more and better revenue. This is show and podcast number 16, heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 a.m., the voice of Central Virginia. Go to our website, 2020sales.solutions. That is 2020sales.solutions. To review our show notes, what we covered today. And Donna, let's talk about our guest.
Yes, I am really excited to have John Richards with us. John is the Director of Sales and Brokerage at the Barter Authority. And John's been living in Richmond since 1972, so you can pretty much call him a Richmond native, I think. He started.
If he doesn't have any relatives in Hollywood Cemetery, I don't know about that.
I didn't get here till, when did I get here? It doesn't, 2011. So yeah, he's a native to me. Anyway, he started working as a financial advisor in 1985, spent 27 years in that industry, and has been working with business owners for the last 35 years, building relationships across the United States. John has seen a share of recessions and crashes, you can imagine, after 35 years, and has successfully navigated them all. So, John, welcome officially again to the show.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here.
Yes. So, John, I just got to know, has your sales conversations changed now that we're in a pandemic?
When you're in these kind of situations, I find that they try to, but the real purpose is the same. I believe when you're talking with anybody about, building that relationship, building that trust, to try to help them through the sales of whatever you may have, to do that, you need to get to know them. So the conversation is just the same. A lot of the answers and that kind of thing could be a little bit more difficult, and they actually become a little bit more lengthy.
So you're having these conversations. Where are you finding the people to talk to? Because we're pretty much all told to stay home.
I do a lot of Zoom meetings. I've already had 3 Zoom meetings today. I was on a network meeting through an organization called Synapse earlier. I was on a BNI meeting last week or yesterday. So there's a lot of different opportunities, especially with technology today, to be able to be in front of people and collaborate.
That's awesome. So you're finding places to find people. How are you finding those places?
A lot of it's through relationships that I had built over the years. Networking is something that's kind of in my blood. It's been in my blood for a long time. I'm a strong believer in building strategic partnerships that you can rely on during the good and the bad times. So if you can find people that have similar needs as you and or supply some of the things that you may need or may need some of the stuff that you need or want or have to offer, then that's a good strategic partner to help you, build and grow your business and make the lifestyle that you're looking for.
I like that you said strategic partnerships. I'm writing that down. Because there's a lot of, when we talk about sales conversations, there's a lot of B2B or B2C, which is business to business sales or business to consumer or customer sales. But you're talking about strategic partnerships. What does that mean?
What that means to me, and really what that means, people use different verbiage for it, strategic partnerships, golden gooses, whatever the case may be. But let's say, for example, you're a realtor. Who do you want to partner up with that is running around with the same people and the same needs that, similar needs or let's say synergistic needs to be able to help each other. So you should surround yourself with attorneys that do closings, mortgage lenders, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, accountants. Those types of people tend to have a good strategic partnership to be able to help each other. When I was a financial advisor, we built a huge amount of these relationships so we could feed each other clients, but at the same time get to know each other so we know the type of people that actually fit better with this accountant versus that accountant or this attorney versus that attorney.
Yeah, what a great thing to think about, especially right now, is going back to the people that you've already built relationships to and turning them into the strategic partnerships, because now you've got know, like, and trust
Yeah.
with that instant testimonial of somebody else.
Yeah, I was a president of a local networking group, and this is one of the things we talked about, and I think in the world before the pandemic, is this was a smart thing to do, but not necessarily required. And I really think that we've moved from smart to you best do that. You look at the value chain, the customer's value chain, and who are the players who provide value to the customer that has an association with your offer. And in the past, that was just bright. I think now it's mandatory.
Well, and in this world, what you're really trying to do, you were asking me the original question is, has my conversations changed? Really, they've accelerated. Within the Barter Authority, for example, we've got over 700 active members between here and Tidewater, between Richmond and Tidewater, and we deal with another 10,000, businesses and tens of thousands of businesses across the country. So I'm talking to people everywhere, and the conversations are starting the same. First question is, how things going? It's tough. All right, what can we help you with? Talk to me. What do you need more of? What do you need less of? Where the problems that people are running into today are the problems that none of us have seen. Whether it be, Black Friday in '87, the bond crisis in '92, 9/11,
Right.
tech bubble, whatever. We've never seen this stuff before. Everybody's done.
Yeah, not in our generation anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the conversations that myself and our brokers are having with our members right now is, we're here to help you. Tell us what you're looking for. What do you need? Restaurants, we had a restaurant come to us, literally last Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday. We revamped their entire marketing campaign and put that across about 10 different platforms to let everybody know that he was going to be doing delivery and curbside pickup. And his whole business model changed in 48 hours, and we were able to use some of those trade dollars that he had created to get that word out there. And that's a total collaborative environment. So we probably put together about 15 different businesses to help him just by having a conversation with him.
Yeah, it's like the one I had last night, where somebody who is in she is a chef, prepares meals as well as a caterer, and she's partnered with a number of organizations where now her wait staff are basically, they did a partnership with a rental company, and their wait staff are now delivering the food that she is making, and she's sending it to medical facilities and things of that nature. People that she was selling to upper end people, now her food's going everywhere, and it's high quality food, and it's vegan friendly and gluten friendly, and all the things that are now required. So and it's great that you're able to help people like that, because a lot of times people get locked up and they can't get their heads out of the box.
Right.
So one of the things I'm offering to people in all these groups that I'm meeting with and everybody I'm talking to, I don't care whether it's you or it's somebody else, if anybody that's open to having a conversation, I'd be happy to talk with them and see how, myself might be able to help them through any connections that I have, and or any connections that anybody throughout the Barter Authority or even outside of the Barter Authority can help them.
And that's
the biggest
great.
thing when you're building those sales relationships is the understanding of each other and to have that trust. And the only way to get that is to really share with who you are and what you do, and vice versa, to really be there for each other when it's needed.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
you've totally positioned yourself that way.
yeah, and we're gonna have to take a hard break here. So, John, when we come back, one of the things I'll have Donna lead off with, is how do people get in touch with you? Of course, we'll do that several times during the next half hour. Okay, so we're coming up to a hard break at the bottom of the hour. You've been listening to 90 Sales 2020. Our website is 2020sales.solutions. We're heard every Saturday and Sunday on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM from Chester, Virginia, the voice of Central Virginia, and we will be right back. All right, that was a good segment.
Yes. So kind of took you down a couple of extra questions, John, and I liked where it went. When we come back, we'll talk about the building trust in a fear-based environment, and then your sales follow-up process that we talked about, that trust and collaborate. That I know for me personally, whenever I need something, I'm going to call you because I know you know everybody. So
John, did you have a chance to read my show notes for this on the 4 perspectives on
Yes, I
sales?
did.
Any comments or thoughts on that?
Not really off the top of my head. I'd have to
Okay.
re-pull them up.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
not.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fine. I just wanted to know because when we go to the third segment, the last 18 minutes, then what we'll do is I'll get into those show notes, and then the three of us just go banter back and forth. All right, we ready?
And that's at 2020 sales solution dot sales solutions, right?
2020sales.solutions.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then go
Right.
to tools, and you'll see show notes. Second
Gotcha.
one in the menu. All
I'll
right.
pull it up so I can have it in front of me.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're back. You're listening to Sales 2020, everything a business owner needs to know and do to generate more and better revenue. This is show and podcast number 16, heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 a.m., the voice of Central Virginia. And so what we're going to do is we just finished up the great first half. So, Don, a quick review. What did we cover in the first half for the people that are joining the show now before you bring John back on?
Oh, well, goodness. In the early part of the show, we had talked about the black swan, that it's inevitable, and if a business owner is thinking ahead, they're going to have a strategy for moving forward, from to become anti-fragile, which is where we really want to be, in a growth phase versus just a survival or the business is done. And then we talked a little bit with John Richards of the Barter Authority, and who was telling us that really his sales conversations haven't changed at all. People are still buying. People are still needing.
In fact, they may be needing more.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, John,
Yes.
what's your next question for John?
Well, first of all, I do want to say, if you're listening, you can go to barterauthority.com and check out John's the business that John is representing today, barterauthority.com. And I think Barter Authority is a great way to go for a lot of businesses, especially right now, if bringing in hard cash to purchase things like marketing and I don't know, other, John, you'll have to tell me what else. I know your company, but what are some of the things that at the Barter Authority that are really hot right now?
A lot of marketing, a lot of printing. We do a significant amount of product, but right now people are just really hunkering down, trying to get the word out on what they're doing. Also, a lot of the services have kind of subsided because of the inability. But we have a phone company that does voice over IP, for example, and we probably connected him with about 10 different companies to help get their phone systems to the point that they can actually work from home, and all that was done on trade. All our web developers, all our digital marketers and all that are just cranking up, and we're bringing them tons of business right now because people are changing the way they do business.
We're actually getting our Sales 2020 logo through the Barter Authority.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's a good choice because I know I can tell you that NTW, the radio station, is part of the Barter Authority.
So it's very, very popular. If you haven't checked them out yet, this is a great time to check out the Barter Authority, barterauthority.com. Before the break, John, you were talking a lot about trust. And I just want to know, how do you build trust in a fear-based environment? Because that's where we are right now. People are afraid. They don't know if their business is going to sustain. They don't know what tomorrow looks like, but they do know that something's got to happen. So can you speak to that?
When I was first trained as a salesperson, as a financial advisor and that kind of stuff, one of the things they taught us was one of the favorite thing people have to talk about is themselves. But it also is a good way to get to know somebody. And if you can learn a skill of getting people to start talking about themselves and what's important to them, what's not important to them, where they are, probably most importantly, when you're looking at sitting down with somebody initially, whether it's in a fear-based environment or not, finding out who they are, what they do, why they do what they do, what motivates them, what they're passionate about. When you get involved with a fear-based scenario like what we're in right now, it's real important to figure out where you are today. Not only where you were, but where are you today?
Yeah, good current reality.
And then where do you want to be? Because then you can start figuring out how to get there. In doing this, what happens is you naturally build trust with people because not only are you listening about them, but it also gives you an opportunity to share your experience and share your experience with them on who you are and where you are and that type of stuff. You know, a trust in a business environment is no different than a trust in a social environment. The more you get to know each other the more intimate that gets, the stronger the trust becomes.
So you've been positioning yourself as that guy for decades,
Decades.
right? Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm imagining you're going to look through your virtual Rolodex a little bit before making the call, so you have kind of fresh in your mind who you think you might be able to connect to whomever. You were talking before the break about strategic partnerships. I love that
Yeah.
term, strategic partnerships.
Well, for example, with that strategic partnership idea, if anybody listening is interested, text me. Shoot me a text that you're interested in getting connected. I have a digital business card that I send out, and then, for example, on that card, it has a button for a connection request form. It has about 5 questions: who you're trying to meet, why you're trying to meet them. Not necessarily by name; it could be industry or whatever the case may be. But I went through 5 of those last night, and in going through those, I was looking at who can I connect this person with that does this, but also would be a good connection for those people.
So to get in touch with
Mhm.
you, it's 804 399.
399-1761. That's 804-399-1761.
Send a
And that
text.
is my cell, but feel free to reach out, text, whatever the case may be, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
And that just speaks so much volumes, I think, that you're giving out your cell phone number to on the radio to say contact me because I want to help you and I want to help your business. So, I mean, if that doesn't exude trust, I don't know what does.
Yeah, and that's the way to
Well,
build it.
I remember as a financial advisor, I was sitting in my office and in September 11th of 2001. And one of my partners had just flown across the country to do something. And we're sitting there looking at this, and we had just started our business. We had just left Mass Mutual and then went independent about a year and a half before that. And we were looking at this going, now what?
Mm.
And we picked up the phone, and we started calling all these terrified people
Mm-hmm.
as they're looking at what was going on the TV and that kind of stuff. We're in the same environment right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to my brokers, I've got 2 brokers in particular. One are 21, one's 23. And they said, what are we going to do? And I said, you're going to pick up that phone. We're going to call every single one of these scared business owners, and we're going to see how we can help them.
Yeah, because when fear shows up, there's a physiological response of either fight or flight. And for a lot of people, physically, like, things just start shutting down. You don't digest as well, and your blood is going differently through your body, and a confused mind, a fearful mind just shuts down. And so for the business owner to be picking up the phone and reaching out, you're really throwing a lifeline out to people. You're really doing a service. You're not selling. You're not being that icky salesperson.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that right now maybe one of the biggest services that we all can provide, and you're doing it, John, is you're the calm in the storm.
Yes.
And that's what we try to do. We can talk about the Barter Authority business and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we can help just about everybody. And a lot of the people, have built these trade accounts with us because we're basically a bank that does marketing, and we're using those trade dollars to help them. But if somebody's out there and they've got a struggling business or they're not sure what to do, I just offered $3,000 worth of credit to a guy with no interest because I know his business is going to be here when this dust settles. But he needs to get the word out, and he can't afford it right now. So we're getting ready to put him on a radio advertising and some other digital marketing because we trust where he is right now and that he's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to stick our neck out and help him get his word out so we can help him down the road, and then he can help our clients down the road when they need HVAC.
I love it. I love it. John, we got a couple of minutes left before going to break. What else do you want our listeners to know about you or about the Barter Authority that would be most helpful to them right now?
One of the ways I believe in sales to really help people understand, especially types of businesses like ours, is to just tell a story. So right now, I'm currently working with one of our auto shops, and I'm not going to use their name because we're on the radio, but one of our auto shops, they've been in business for 40 years, and he's making an offer of sanitizing cars and all that kind of stuff for free, and he really wants to get the word out about it and all that kind of stuff. And he's built up an account, maybe $40,000 worth of trade dollars with us. So what we've done for him in the last 48 hours is I'm going to have him on about 3 different radio stations on some of the digital marketing, email campaigns, some of the digital Valpak, and a few other things. It's going to be about $30,000 worth of stuff. And that was all created by us bringing him clients that he would have never met, filling bays that were empty at that point in time, because we sell that excess to capacity to create those trade dollars. So these are savings accounts that are going to help him get his word out while his guys are sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and he's trying to figure out how to get people in there.
Yeah, what a great example. So thanks, John. You're listening to John Richards with the Barter Authority. He says send him a text at 804-399-1761 so that he can get you connected to the resources that you need to grow your business right now in this pandemic. And you can learn more about the Barter Authority at barterauthority.com. So, Bill, you want to take us to break?
Yep. You've been listening to Sales 2020, everything a business owner needs to know to generate more and better revenue. This is show 16, podcast 16, heard every Saturday at 10 a.m., Sunday at 4 p.m. on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 a.m., the voice of Central Virginia, and we will be right back.
Yay, John. You did awesome.
Great
Is that
segment,
good?
John.
Yes.
Yep. So in a minute here or so, we're going to come back, and I'm going to go back to my article, but I think good idea would be for people on Facebook, put out the phone number, and anybody listening to the Facebook Live that wants to talk to John or us, but let's pump John.
Yeah, and I've already connected when I promoted your show yesterday. Connected them to you on Facebook. I don't know if you saw that, John, and to the Barter Authority. And then, with your permission, I'll also put your phone number out there again with this.
Sure.
You can say no if you don't want it.
I'm in sales. Anybody can call me.
I would have been shocked if you said, "Oh no, I don't want anybody calling me." Yeah, you sound like me.
It's classic sales. You identify the problem, you give them a solution, then you give them a call to action. That's it.
There you go. Well, I know you're a super busy guy. You're welcome to stay for the next 18 minutes if you want it.
Sure.
Put in there.
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody on Facebook, we're going to roll in the last segment.
CJ,
and
you ready?
Here we go. He's recording, so
the whole time?
he's been all right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. We're back. You're listening to Sales 2020, everything a business owner needs to know to generate more and better revenue. This is show and podcast number 16, heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 a.m., the voice of Central Virginia. You to keep up with us, you need to go to our website, and that is 2020sales.solutions. That is 2020sales.solutions on the navigation bar. Lots of stuff to look at. 2 things I'd recommend. 1, take our survey. You'll see Corona Selling. 3 questions on a Google form. You take that, and next week we'll give you the results of what we've got. We're using that to shape our programming. We basically do programming on demand here. What that means is when the listeners say, we want to hear X, we come up with X, and maybe we add Y and Z to it. Also, you'll see on tools, show notes, and so what you can do is you can take a look at what we're going to be covering right now. I'm on show 16, sales and the follow-up, and that's where I'm going to take the conversation next. And joining me is Donna Cundy in the studio, and then John Richards is on the phone because we're practicing not being in the same space at the same time. What are we doing in the same space?
I know you're in my space, Bill.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll change that. Anyway, I wrote this article totally independent of this conversation with John, and so I have a couple different spins on this. I don't think anything here is contradictory. It's just maybe a different way of looking at it. And so what I did is I said, okay, what's the difference between if you're going to sell normally, and the theme was about follow-up. So following up with people that you got in your sales funnel in the normal world, and following up with customers that either you currently have or they're past customers, but they're still happy with you, let's say. We'll put that stipulation on there. how is what we're in right now different from that? So I kind of looked at four conditions because in crisis, how do I follow up on leads and what do I need to do? And I think John's done a good job in between the before the last break of going through that. And then also, how do I deal with the people that are current customers or have been customers in the past? And how do I follow up with them now because things are a little bit different? So here's my 2 cents on this. And it's all in the article, so you can download it, cut it, paste it, whatever. Is that in a normal world, we're using the period of time to nurture the relationship because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand the pain points. Because my training in sales comes from the fact that if I understand what the customer's pain points are and what that costs them in some sort of numerical figure, I know whether my solutions fit. I know whether they can afford my solutions or they should be talking to somebody else. Helps me put together kind of the proposal of here's what I'm going to do for you. And so I've also operated under the mindset that building trust is awful difficult until you do something. And so my mindset has always been it's not a trust problem, it's a risk issue. And that is if you have 4 or 5 options in the market to buy from somebody and you've bought from the others and you never bought from me, you're taking a big risk buying from me because you're not going to trust me until you make the purchase. And then what I promised we would do, whether I'm
meet
talking
your
about,
expectation.
yeah, well, it's whether what I promised the product or service has in it in terms of features,
It's about expectations.
or what I promised and follow up in terms of sales. Yeah, I create expectations in the sales process. Do I honor them? And so I never really focused on building trust. I kept saying to myself, how do I minimize the risk that this person has got to take in order to buy from me? Because if they buy from me, I can beat those other people. But until the purchase happens, I can say this all day. And so to me, one of the things that I looked at was how do I reduce the risk that people have got to take as I'm doing this nurturing process, as I'm trying to understand what the pain points are. And the difference now is that the risk is a different issue because now instead of them risking whether they buy from me and I help them out, their businesses are under risk.
Or their livelihood, like their home, am I
Yeah.
going to feed my kids? Am I going to keep my house?
And so the risk is really different. And so what do I do to give them kind of, and I use the term, John, with you, is how do I convey, and I think you got to be somewhat subtle about this, how do I convey that I am the calm in the storm? Okay, I'm a sailor. I'm at sea. The weather's bad. I got to get in. I got to find a port someplace. How do I convey to the customer that I'm the port of choice? Not because the weather's bad, but I really am the port of choice here. And so I see that the sales process, the follow up on leads that I have that I'm trying to close, is really different now. So, John, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, and I understand I see what you're saying with the risk part. When you're looking at, it all comes down to choice and decisions. And when, you're bringing a solution, when somebody has a problem and you're bringing a solution to them, and it's time to make a decision, they have to have faith that it's the right decision. And when you have all this fear over top of them, they're terrified of making a mistake because the margin for error is so much smaller.
That's right.
And that's, it goes back to the trust issue that we were talking about. So, in aligning what you're trying to help people accomplish is to now weather that storm. The storm we're in is changing how everybody's going to be doing business going forward.
Yeah, there's going to be a new normal. I just want to speak real quick, if I can, to the mindset piece because that's what I do. Like getting in, I had a conversation with a guy last week and he's like, oh my God, get out of my head. But really, when we're in a state of world fear, world pandemic, I went into a grocery store and by the time I left, I was so nauseous because the energy of fear was just everywhere. It creates both in the seller and the buyer new thought patterns. And so it when we're in this prolonged fear, there's an inability to make decisions, muddled thinking, right? There's becoming more vague. So if you're trying to make a sale with somebody and get them to a close, It's going to be harder to get there. As a seller, there's going to be this new fear of rejection or more defensiveness if you had worked through that before. Maybe an oversensitivity to criticism, more negative self-talk, fear of failure. So these are some very real thoughts that are going to be showing up in both the buyer and the seller in this time that we need to, as sales professionals, really consider that it's not just building trust or minimizing risk. I think it's also knowing that this is happening, having this
Right.
awareness.
And I think that the thing to stay away from is getting the person that you're talking to in this sales transaction, not talking to them in a way that's creating any recriminations. In other words, I as a business owner, I can see somebody going, 2 months ago, I went out and spent X number of dollars on a piece of equipment, and what it did is my line of credit's maxed out. I've got no more money in the bank, and now it doesn't matter what I can produce now cheaply or how much quality, I got nobody to sell to.
Yeah.
And so a lot of business owners, and this is that fragile thing, is what they haven't done is they were thinking about everything's going to be normal. So I moved normally, and now I'm going back in my head going over the last 6 months of all of the decisions I shouldn't have made and how much money that I probably
Yeah, but
should
you
have
can't
in
live
the
in the
business.
past anymore. You gotta move forward.
That's your point, is that in this process of, I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is, how am I, our relationship, this transaction, working with the Barter Authority in this particular case, or working with the radio station. How are we the new opportunity? How are we the calm in the storm? Because that is the thing that they're now looking for. And if we can deal with the emotion side of this, now we can begin to get into the logic. Because one of the other differences, in normal times, I can't assume I know what the pain points are. So part of my process of talking to the
and
customer.
that's what John does right up front. Tell me what you need.
See, now, right now, I think we can assume what the pain points are. It has to do with money. It has to do with customers, and we have to do with employees. And so there's not too many other issues. I've run out of money. I got no cash flow. I got no credit. My customers are no longer buying. They've reneged or they've canceled contracts I've got. I don't have enough money past next Friday to pay payroll. We can pretty much say that that's where we're at. So we're also in a different situation. Not that we're selling a solution or selling a solution looking for a problem, but in normal times, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know what the problem is. So I'm constantly listening, and it's a more iterative, longer process. Right now, is I need to display some certainty without arrogance, some subtleness without over the top, that I've got an answer.
Be the trusted expert. John, are you finding any of what we're talking about in the real world out there happening?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking to business owners every day, and they're not only fearful of what's going to happen today, or their doors are shut. The question is, what are we going to do if we can open those doors? Are we going to bring back all these employees? And a lot of these employees are friends because they're small business owners.
Yeah.
They're small businesses. It's as we continue to move forward.
And we are moving forward.
Yeah, as we continue to move forward, if we can all do it together, we've got a shot. And right now I'm quarantined with my 95-year-old father. He was alive during the Depression. His anxiety has been going through the roof off and on. And I'm getting him to talk about it. And what he's talking about what if it doesn't go back to the way it was? And we talk about that. And I said, did it then? And he was very young then, but I said, did it after World War II? And he goes, no, everything changed. And, that we're already seeing new businesses spring up. We're already seeing breweries turning into, hand sanitizer manufacturers.
Creativity.
So, opportunity will come from this, but at the same time, that there's going to be a lot of pain. And if we can all reach out the hand and sit there and see how we can help each other, it's gonna be okay. The big fear that we're seeing is the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest fear that we're seeing.
And that's why people like us have got to be the calm in the storm. We've got to express some confidence that we have solutions. Now, obviously, if you don't have a solution, you're lying. but I'm not talking about that. I'm not even entertaining that thought, is that they're going to come to you because you can help them. And by conveying that confidence that as everybody's kind of getting weirded out, you're calm and you're collective, and that is now pretty noticeable.
As you're saying that, Bill, I'm just thinking like we can rewrite the stereotype of the salesman right now in this environment. We have that opportunity,
Well,
right?
we're problem solvers. I mean,
Yes.
sales is not slimy. Most people think sales is slimy. Sales is the greatest thing in the world because what is our real job? Our customers have problems for which we can solve. And as long as we are the right solution for them and they can afford our solution, then we're doing good work.
That's right.
We're only slimy when we're selling things to people that they can't afford and don't need. Now we're slimy.
Yeah, if you're trying to sell like a vacation on a cruise ship right now, that's probably not.
Well, I don't know. You probably get a deal.
Yeah, I guess so.
Let me switch to the other side here because we've got about 6-7 minutes later left in the show. And as we were talking about the follow up with people that you're trying to bring in, the acquisition of accounts, customers, clients, and the difference between crisis and normal, let's talk about following up with existing customers or customers we had in the past. Because one of the reasons I'm hot on this is that the cost of sales, the cost of acquisition is 80% less with existing accounts. If you look at what it costs you to get a new account versus talking to an old one, it's 1/5 of that, 20% of the cost, however you want to cut that up. Now, in the normal world, typically what we're doing is we're upselling our offer. And so I have a customer come in, and by the way, Don and I had a great conversation about this before we started the show. When you look at your products and services, if you don't have a value ladder, you don't have a ladder of here's the basic offer, here's the core offer, here's the advanced offer, etc., you need to rethink what you're doing. Because when you upsell, what do you want? I'm going to look at what the customer has purchased from us, and if it is not our complete offer, then what I'm going to upsell is why you're getting that from somebody else, or maybe they're not getting it at all. We can provide the whole thing, and if we bundle together, we can come up with better pricing. You got more control, you got less people to deal with, etc. In this environment, and I think John hit on it in the first half hour of the show, is that now what we're doing here is like my friend Tammy and her catering service, our conversation last night, is that what can I insource from my customers, things that they really need to do that can no longer afford to do? So in our example was you look at the hospital has people that are working in the cafeteria. They're going to need, if they're going to wipe everything down all the time, and I know this because one of my jobs when I was in high school is I worked in housekeeping in a hospital. They're going to need twice as many people to wipe down the hospital because this stuff stays on surfaces for 3 days. Where are you going to get the staff?
Right.
So why don't they take the people from the kitchen, put them out there, and instead of making all the meals, have somebody like Tammy make the meals.
Right. Or like we were talking about my friend Alice that has the flour company.
Right.
So she's going to the local grocers and saying, can we give you the flours to distribute so you got a value add to your people? Like, we just need to get rid of them right now so they don't, because they're going to die, right? And then, oh, by the way, we have several vehicles that we used to do deliveries with. Maybe we can have a partnership where we can deliver some of your groceries.
Right. And find a way to give each other just enough money to keep it going.
Yeah,
This is not about profitability. This is about staying open,
knowing your
and
numbers,
keeping people employed.
My friends that own the restaurants, they know 47 meals a day, and we're staying open. 47 meals a day, and you can gift it to somebody. So they're calling on people that can gift it. So many ideas. So
before I turn it back to John here in the last couple of minutes, is that what we're saying here is that in this environment with existing customers is what burdens can you take from them, and that's the conversation to have that perhaps you can help them with, and what burdens do you have that you can get their help from, and the two of you or the three of you or the four of you stay in business over this period. And of course, that's going to create a totally different relationship.
That's the American spirit. That's how we built this country.
And John, it sounds like that's what you're doing at the Barter Authority.
Yeah, really what we're talking about there is building collaborative environments. How can we help each other? I was looking for it just now. There's a story that I saw that's going on in Henrico County right now. And there's a subsidy. I'm going to butcher this, but basically, from what I understand, the restaurants are doing some of the feeding of the first responders
Yeah,
and
I
that
saw
type
that.
of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the county's actually subsidizing the restaurants and
That's awesome.
footing the bill for that.
Awesome.
And it's something like that. So don't hold me to it, but I
Yeah.
guess go to henricocounty.com or whatever.
Just get
But
creative.
Well,
but the point is,
and John, if they're
Mhm.
not doing it after this, they will be.
There you go. And this is the creative stuff is not only how can I help, but how can I help and also survive at the same time. And and when we're talking with our clients right now, what we're talking with them about is, not only how can we save you cash, how can we do this, how can we do that, but really how can we help you today, and where let's keep this conversation going and see where we're headed. So a lot of businesses' phones aren't ringing right now. My phone is actually connected to our whole phone system, and during this whole conversation, my phone has gone off about 45 times.
Wow.
Awesome.
All right, so we're getting all these people together, and actually one of the things that I'm getting ready to launch next week is some collaborative meetings where I'm just going to open up a Zoom meeting, invite as many of our members in as we possibly can, and anybody else wants to join in, and have at it.
All right.
Share what you got, share what you need, see if you guys can help each other.
John, that's a great
if we
point.
wind up making money off of it, great.
John, that's a great place to close because we've got to take it out. We're at the bottom at the end of the hour. So one more time, how do people get a hold of you?
Please feel free to reach out to me through email at john@barterauthority.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell, 804-399-1761. That's 804-399-1761. Thanks a lot for your time.
All right. Thank you, John. And Donna, thank you for a great show today. You'll find our podcast, everybody, up in our library, 2020sales.solutions. Go to tools, and you'll see podcast. It'll be up there sometime today, unless I'm really slow, but I don't think so. And then you can either listen to it on the website, you can download it, or you can go to SoundCloud where we keep all of our podcasts. And there's probably about 150 podcasts up there. So any topic you want to know on business, we have it. So with that, let me close. You've been listening to Sales 2020 on WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM, the voice of Central Virginia. See you next week, and I stand relieved.
Great job,
John, thank you. Great show.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate the opportunity. You guys are doing a great thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get your phone ringing a little bit more, too.
And if you want one of us on the Zoom, send me something, or Donna, something more on what you're doing on Zoom, because there may be something we can do to help.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Great. Well, you have a wonderful day, John. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. I think you came through.
That was a good show.
Yes. Very valuable.
More scripting.
See?